And thank you all for being here. I am super excited that we have Ben Dollard here to open up today's conversation as our keynote. Ben Dollard joined Treasury Wine Estates as president of the Americas division in January of 2020, responsible for leading the business across the region. And imagine joining in January of 2020, best laid plans, right? Who cares? COVID comes a couple months later, and I mean, just an incredibly challenging time when you take on a role like Ben did. But here he is, right? And he's one of those folks that I've talked about that are winning despite how challenging things are. Since that time, Ben has reshaped the Treasury Americas business with a relentless focus on consumers, innovation, and unlocking the potential of the premium and luxury business. Ben has been instrumental in a couple of major acquisitions, beginning with Frank Family Vineyards and most recently Dow Vineyards, with an eye on future growth. With 20 plus years experience in the alc beverage industry in the Americas region, Ben joined Treasury having worked in various senior executive roles with Constellation Brands in the US and in Canada. Ben has an extensive general management experience in leading the growth agenda for wine and other alc beverages, including all aspects of marketing, sales, and operations across a number of key roles, including Chief Growth Officer, President of the Canadian Division, Chief Marketing Officer, and Head of International Markets for Constellation Brands Wine and Spirits Division. So please join me in welcoming Ben Dollard to the stage.
Great. Well, firstly, George, thank you very much. And I couldn't be more excited to have this opportunity. And for me, driving from Napa to Sonoma or vice versa is not a big deal. So I'm particularly pleased. I think, you know, as we reflect on everything George just said and the place the industry's in, as I was thinking about this opportunity to connect with all of you today, the idea that we can just talk about, okay, you know, how is our company leaning into some of these challenges? And so that's really what I want to talk about today. And again, thank you for having me and this opportunity. And I look forward to a whole bunch of questions too, if we have the time. You know, as we think about the journey that we have with consumers, and we think about the ambition that we all have and the connection we all have, as George said, you know, I started with Treasury back in January of 2020. Straight after that, like all of us, we were dealt cards that none of us had really experienced before. But, you know, from our perspective, this opportunity to kind of lean in and to think about the very personal connections that we all need to have with our consumer. And we all talk about consumer-obsessed society and how we think about that. But from my vantage point and our vantage point, I think it's much deeper than that. It truly is that personal connection that we have with every single one of our consumers. And that really, I think, is at the core of the opportunity for our industry as we think about moving forward and how we're going to progress and engage not only with the consumers that we love today, but also those consumers that we haven't yet engaged with. And so it's with that opportunity and that backdrop and that context that I'd like to share with you just a couple of case studies that our company has embarked on and how we think about that and how we really you know, cultivate that interpersonal connection with the consumer. And for me, I get really excited by that and the opportunity across the industry for us to take it to the next level. A little bit about our company. Obviously, Treasury Wine Estates, Australian-based, headquartered in Melbourne, Australia. We operate across many geographies around the world. Fairly big footprint in Asia, with a strong emphasis on China. We're publicly traded in Australia, but we also have a fairly significant footprint here in California. And about 1,000 of my colleagues who wake up all day, every day, you know, thinking about this opportunity and thinking about the consumer. We have vineyards throughout the world, largely in all of the premier wine growing regions. And most recently, we've initiated activity in China, really on the back of the Chinese market reopening, certainly for Australian wine, that's just been announced over the last couple of months. So we see a really big opportunity to continue to cultivate the global wine community and really to continue to tell a story of quality and relaying that story of quality to consumers around the world, I think is particularly exciting. So as we think about the ambition of our category and where we're going as an industry, that connection, that one-on-one connection is so important. And again, I'd just like to spend a little bit of time today sharing a couple of stories around how we're connecting and thoughts with regards to how we continue to dig deeper and get more personal and tighten those connections with our consumers. And that's really, I think, the opportunity for all of us to think about. So my first case study relates to the wine experience. And just, what does that look like in terms of how we think about the connections? Now, I think we all know that only, so many people can come visit us here in California, be it in Sonoma, be it in Paso Robles or Napa Valley or wherever it may be. But the opportunity that we have to bring our experience to life and to really cultivate that experience and unwind the stress that exists in everyday life, this is our opportunity, and the ability to bring those experiences to life and tell our stories and bring a relaxing environment, that really presents us a fundamental advantage as a product. But it goes a lot deeper than that, and it really does, then beg the question, okay, how do we take that experience outside of wine country? How do we travel with that? What does that look like when we do that? And how do we bring that to life? And that's really brings me to the acquisition of DAOU for Treasury Wine Estates. So last October, we announced that we're acquiring DAOU. Treasury has a really beautiful winery in Paso Robles, somewhat underutilized. And DAOU was a brand that was really connecting in a very personal way with the consumer. And it was by virtue of that connection that we saw a tremendous opportunity. But we also, as we continue to unpack it and understand the brand better, we saw that it was doing things differently. Certainly counter to what a lot of our popular beliefs are. And that was really, really exciting. And that ability to connect on a very personal way with a consumer is what drew us to DAOU. And it's this idea of unwinding wine. The idea of DAOU life is fine. All of those connections, I think, are really, really important. And so, it was particularly exciting for us to see that and to understand it and to get to know it, because what it taught us is that we can think about things differently and we can challenge ourselves with regards to the opportunity that we see for not only existing consumers, as I said before, but these new consumers who are engaging with wine now. And then how do you bring it to life? Is it this opportunity to think about the experience at the tasting room in a different way, to bring a sense of calm and peace, but not only that, also to bring a sense of excitement. Because at the end of the day, we bring great joy to people's lives and we make people happy, and that's exactly what drew us to DAOU. And couldn't be more excited. We're 6 months in now, still getting to know the brand, and certainly the team. But this idea that we can, again, just bring more people to wine and the experience is really what drew us to DAOU and continues to get us particularly excited as we move forward. There's another key component of this opportunity which relates to technology and the way in which we engage our consumers as they walk in and out of the door. And then how do we hold them as key advocates for what we're doing for years and years to come. And again, DAOU has a very heavy focus on that connection, not only when you're there at the winery, but also then when you leave. And the idea that we've created what we call the DAOU Plus app, this connection that is, is very much a personal connection all day, every day, is again another opportunity that we see as a really big part of our future. Case study number 2 relates to the power of influence. So on one side, we own some of the most beautiful properties in California, an incredible portfolio, but then also we see an opportunity to this on-ramp, this new way of thinking for consumers. And again, I think it's something we're all grappling with, right? Which is, how do we now tackle the next generation? And what are some of those ideas that we can all embrace that allow us to do that? And the power of influence is a big part of that prospect for us. Now, in 2020, at a time when we're all going through enormous change, and we talk about this post-COVID era, we saw an opportunity to think about engaging with the consumer in a different way. And 19 Crimes is a brand that we own. We made friends with Snoop Dogg, just like I think many companies have made friends with Snoop Dogg, because he pretty much is on everything going around right now. He's about to be one of the lead anchors at the Summer Olympics for NBC. But what it allowed us to do was to talk to a cohort of consumers that our category hadn't done for some time. And his ability, as he refers to, his community, his family, the way that he connects and talks all day, every day to that group is very powerful. And so our ability to partner with him on the creation of some new wines. He was very involved in the creation of that, but most importantly, we were engaging with consumers that were excited to learn about wine, didn't know a lot about it, but also this opportunity to really tap into this cultural opportunity was really what led us to that relationship. And it continues to grow, and we continue to nurture it. But it's really exciting because it just presented an opportunity for us. Again, another case study on in times when the market has its fundamental challenges and headwinds and all of those things, how do we think about things differently? And how do we lead in and consider kind of a bold approach that may be counter to what traditionally we've done as a category. So again, it's been really exciting working on this project, and very different from anything else we've done, but it allowed us to talk to a different consumer. The next case study I just want to talk about is, okay, how do you translate that? So we talk about mining for insights and gleaning thoughts that sit in consumers' heads, understanding what's on their mind and what's important to them as you think about when you get home on a Friday night and you've had a big week, and how are you going to relax? It's how do you translate those insights into action? And again, I just want to share a case study that we're using, taking our relationship and the power of influence, particularly with someone like Snoop. How do we translate that then to what's on the consumer's mind? And how do we bring that to life? And so I think this opportunity to create connections is what led us to the creation of what we're calling Cali cocktails. And again, the RTD space is well documented, is very competitive, as we all know. It's got a lot of offerings. So, how do you break through that, and how do you navigate through that? And this power of influence and the power of an association with somebody who has a really big community was one way that we saw that we could tap into that, and that led us to the creation of Cali Cocktails. And so I'm just going to share with you a little video that shows how we brought it to life. And obviously, for all of us in the industry, we know how the importance of telling our story. So this is our way of telling our story based on the connection and the power of influence, the insights that we glean, and how we bring that to life. So I'll share this with you.
Fight 'em all, yeah, I'm burning it up. DPGC, you should be turning it up. CBT, LBC, yeah, we hooking back up. And when they bang us in the club, baby, you got to get up. Cause homies, thug homies, yeah, they giving it up. Low life, yo life, boy, we living it up. Taking chances while we dancing in the party for show. Slip my girl a 44 when she crept in the back door. Chickens looking at me straight. strange, but you know I don't care. Step up in this mother, just a swank in my hair. Trick, quick talking, crip walk if you down with the set. Take a bullet with some grip and take the smoke on this jet. Out of town, put it down for the father of rap. And if you happen to get cracked, Trick, check your track. Come right out of back, that's the one. This is the one and only.
Hold up.
Yeah.
Swirl.
Oh yeah. Yes.
Okay, so it's interesting. I talk about the acquisition of Dow for our company, or Frank family, or how we cultivate a brand like Penfolds around the world, and then we talk about the relationship we have with someone like Snoop. All of it leads to one common theme, which is just how do we connect with the folks who are keeping the lights on. And the people who are engaging with us all day, every day, and then most importantly, how do we continue to expand that population? And so, being thoughtful and creative with regards to how we do that is really the key driver. And so as I think about the ladder or the progression and the things that are really important in the consideration set for consumers, and I think every day we wake up and we learn more about the choices consumers are making, be it, the value around, how everyone's living their life, the headlines around health and well-being, the considerations for the products that we're putting in our bodies, or the weight of bottles. Sustainability is another area that is becoming increasingly obvious. Just the role that how we protect and nurture the land that we own, and then how we treat one another, and all of those things become increasingly important. So I just thought it would be interesting, another case study of how we take our consumer insights and apply it into what we're doing around the world with all of the properties that we own, and the colleagues that we have in our business. And I like to think about sustainability. It's not a project for us. It's not some pillar that sits on a strategic plan. It's part of our DNA, and has been for some time, and it will continue to be. It's the ask that we have of all of our colleagues and employees every day when they come to work to embrace that. And I've got a couple of my colleagues here who I know do that in a really big way, because we bring it to life internally. So I'd like to share a little bit about how we're approaching sustainability as we move forward. But before I do that, I just want to share how our company, particularly here in California, is approaching it. But Treasury Wine Estates, as a publicly listed entity, has set very bold goals, including 100% renewable electricity across our network by the end of this calendar year, 2024, 100%. How we think about solar adaptation, how we think about carton weight, bottle weight, all of those things. The aspiration that we've set ourselves originally was quite of long term, and we've now brought that well and truly forward, and we've put that in the public domain for all of our investors and stakeholders to see and hold us accountable for. So I'll just share a little bit about the journey that we're on, and talk a little bit more about it.
I understand the climate risks for what I'm going to be planting for the next 50 years in this vineyard.
How do we continue to make amazing BV wines or Beringer wines or Frank family wines or Stag's Leap wines?
True sustainability is all about the long game. It's about the long view. It's not about the quick, sexy wins.
We really stepped back and had a look at what are the vital things that we need for us to continue business into the future. And we came up with a plan that says, all right, great, we are going to be 100% renewable by 2026-ish. That'll be good. We're going to try and cut down our carbon to net zero. We're going to come up with multiple things. We're going to work on our water. The executives came back and they were like, I've got bad news for you, Will. We've decided to bring those targets back to 2024. We've decided to bring those targets up to 2030. That 2050 is way too far off. We had the leaders of our company going to bat and saying, I think we can go harder and bigger and faster.
Treasury has really bold climate action targets, including to be powered by 100% renewable electricity by the end of 2024, as well as to be net zero emissions for our scope 1 and 2 emissions by 2030. So these are really impactful ways that we are holding our feet to the fire, and we have committed to take action.
Having been a 20-year employee at Treasury Wine Estates, I know we will get the resources and the investment behind it to be able to deliver it.
We have mobilized everything we can now. Huge solar panel investment, the largest in the wine industry in the US. Also the investment that goes along with it around understanding energy efficiency and lighting upgrades and how we refrigerate things and how we insulate things and how we drive our vehicles and our tractors.
Cool. So that's just a little snippet, certainly, of what we're doing here in California, and that same approach is happening elsewhere around the world where we own vineyards and have teams. But one of the key ingredients, certainly for our business, is thinking and interacting and relating with our own team, because it all starts with the advocacy of our colleagues. And how we show up every day to work, and how we spend time together and interact with one another. And it's never perfect, and it's in an environment where things can be challenging. We're always looking for new ways to do things and to engage with the consumer. But the number one advocate for all of us is our team. And so, I was really excited and pleased to take everything that Will and Emily talked about in here and then think about, okay, how do we bring that to life internally? So the third case study I have relates to the power of our own team. And, again, as advocates and spokespeople for everything we're doing, and most importantly, we've all got family, we've all got friends, and we tell our stories, and how do we share that? But we actually challenge that, really to take it to a new level. And internally, we initiated what we call our Shark Tank, our sustainability Shark Tank, and we tasked our team to come back and tell us what is it that you care about, and what are those initiatives that we really want to go after, and how do we invest in them so that we feel real value together. And this was an incredibly successful initiative for us. Actually, Megan, sitting right here, led the effort across our business, along with Will and Emily. But just thinking about how do we start to really put our money where our mouth is with regards to the commitments that we're making. And so we initiated this across the company and got incredible feedback from a very large population of our employees, and just saying, okay, this is what we want to do. And I couldn't be more proud, because we've initiated a lot of these projects and we're bringing them to life. And they are not just about Treasury. It's about how we protect components of the community that we're in. How do we co-create with our neighbours, and then protect the finest resources we have, which is a lot of access to water and the Napa Valley River and other areas as we think about where we own vineyards and grapes, so where we make wine. So it's really exciting, and we're doing this again. But again, it's just an interesting way to engage with our colleagues. So the last point I'd just like to make, and I know there's going to be a lot of conversation about this today, and there always is, and it's such an important topic, is just the use of technology, and how we're adapting to just this constantly changing environment where our consumers are so well connected, They have the ability to engage immediately. They're looking for authenticity and all of the things that come naturally, with living our lives. How do we use technology to our advantage? And so, we're the idea of how we activate and use AI as a tool to enhance what we're doing, how we think about bringing our brands to life collectively as an industry with our consumers in a really savvy and rapid way, I think is a key part of our future as we think in investing in technology and really adapting it. So, we just have a couple of examples here, the idea of the living wine labels. How do we tell our story in a world where there's a lot on offer? How do we think about that? How do we also just continue to engage with our consumers in a seamless fashion? And how do we bring those stories to life? And again, we're doing some great work in this space. And I know, a couple of my colleagues are here who are heavily invested in making sure that we continue along that journey, and the resident experts in the space around technology and AI. But this idea that we can tell our story and that we can connect in a really deliberate and sincere fashion, that's the prize. And that's exactly how collectively I think we need to think about this opportunity. So just to kind of wrap up, here, and again, I really do appreciate the opportunity, George, to share a little bit about our story and some of the examples that we're initiating. But most importantly, it all comes back again to where I started, which is this very personal connection with our consumers. And as we think about this post-COVID era, or whatever we want to call it, or this moment in time where the connections we have with one another, the way we talk and respect one another, the way we enjoy our lives and just look for relaxation, all of those things lead back to one common theme, which is this very tight and meaningful connection with our consumer. And it's not just about being consumer obsessed, it's much deeper than that. It's about the experiences that all of our consumers have with our brands, the authenticity we bring, and the value we bring to people's lives, I think is just a massive opportunity. So I really do appreciate having a little bit of time this morning. Thank you very much, and I'd love to take some questions if we could.
Thank you, Ben. That was great. Ben, a little round of applause. So, Ben, we do have some questions, and for those of you that haven't logged on and asked a few questions, we have some that are coming through. So one of the first questions had to do with advice you have for the industry on how to address the kind of the anti-alcohol movement that we're seeing, where even any one glass of wine isn't any good for you. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that it's a real thing, and there's definitely across beer, wine, spirits, across beverage alcohol worldwide, the movement towards reduction, moderation, or in effect, kind of zero consumption is something that as an industry, and I know the industry here in California and elsewhere around the world are thinking long and hard about this. I think the idea that, wine is the original beverage and very organic in what we do all day, every day, and it's very real, and our stories are real, and where we do it is real. And so I think, just the ability to keep telling that story and the value that wine can play, in people's lives, I think that's the way we have to navigate, the movement to reduce consumption, but and also just obviously the balance it plays in our lives. I think just continuing to tell that story and being honest about it. But this is truly, I think, an industry opportunity for us to demonstrate and show the value of wine in life.
That's great. There was obviously the partnership with Snoop is a great example of finding ways to connect with younger consumers if you have the budget. But can you share a little bit about what else you're doing over at Treasury, and maybe some advice on your thoughts on what else we could be doing as an industry to better engage with younger consumers?
Yeah, I think, look, it's something that is well documented and talked about a lot, and I personally, see real opportunity and don't like to really talk about all the headwinds and challenges and all of those things that we have as a category, because today is a moment in time, and things will keep evolving, and it continues to be a really robust category. And so, look, there are signals, and we all see those, but there continues to be opportunity, and this on-ramp for consumers, particularly the next generation of consumers, is real. So it's just how do we tackle that? And I think, again, you think about the things that are really important that we all read about, just around the things that the next generation, the younger generation, those things that are important to them. As I mentioned before, areas around sustainability, authenticity, where are the stories real? How do we share them? And then I go back to what I was talking about a little bit before, the idea that these connections and experiences are a big part of it. So how do we have these experiences travel? And they don't always have to be, with big events and big budgets, but they can be just about the ability for us to tell a story to one person who tells it to the next person.
Got another question.
I don't think it's insurmountable by any means. I think it's a big opportunity.
Agreed. We've got a question from one of our local writers. How are Treasury Wine Estate wines faring in the marketplace by price tier and distribution channel? And is the situation mainly an under $15 issue or an on-premise issue?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I think we all, again, we all see lots of data points, and I think there's definitely, this underlying trend around, less but better. That trend continues, albeit that it's moderated somewhat, and I'm sure Danny's in the room and can share more on that. And but also, when you think about price points and where things are winning and opportunity, definitely we're seeing and we're migrating towards a portfolio that tends to have a bias towards the higher end. And that's largely because that's where we own a lot of vineyards and wineries, but also where we see the consumer continuing to go. So that doesn't mean that there's not this big opportunity. Our relationship with Snoop is just one example, but there are many more across the industry of our peers who are activating and engaging and on-ramping consumers. So I don't like to think that price points are going away forever, or that that categories have been eliminated forever. Rather, how do we keep engaging this next consumer with new innovation and new products? And and I think obviously our relationships with retailers and wholesalers is key to getting our product out there.
And we're going to do one more question, and you can grab Ben after, and I know there's some more questions, but we're not going to be able to get to all of them. But Treasury were one of the first wine companies to really embrace using artificial intelligence as part of their marketing. How do you see AI impacting wine sales and wine marketing in the future?
Yeah, I think, and our company's mobilizing like a lot are, and Justin Nolan, my colleague here, will tell us we need to go faster and harder and invest more, and he's probably right. But look, I think it's going to have a very big impact in terms of just how we activate and engage with our consumer, and we're seeing it. You're right. The living wine labels was one example many years ago of how do you bring your product to life. But again, it's far richer and deeper than that. We have an event, it's called the Wine Event, and just how we think about engaging with our community of friends and family, and how we use AI to drive that initiative has been a cornerstone to how we think about leveraging technology. And again, my colleagues could get much deeper on that and far more sophisticated, but I think as a company we're going to continue to lean in and yet have technology help guide us in terms of the rapid connection with our consumer.
All right, I'm going to go with one more question that just came in. I really like this one. What have been your biggest challenges after acquiring luxury brands like Frank Family and Dow to keep the magic that they have created? I love that question.
Yeah, so it's a great question, and one of the biggest challenges for any business that's acquiring another business is invariably will have a clash of cultures and or maybe not, but you've got to be very respectful, I think, of what is the magic that created these brands, and how do you make sure that you put that magic into the vault and make sure you don't muck with it. So with an acquisition like Frank Family, Rich and Leslie Frank, or Todd Graff, the winemaker, or Liam, who's head of hospitality, making sure that those stories continue to be told in a really authentic way is really important. And then, so protecting that magic is a very high priority. And then with a brand like Dow, we're about 6 months in to the acquisition of Dow, and much bigger transaction for us with a lot more complexity. And again, but the same principles apply, which is just how do you make sure that you're protecting the magic of the brand and the very core, the DNA of the brand, and then things will keep evolving from there. But we bought a brand like Dow because we saw enormous opportunity. And we saw enormous opportunity to engage with a new consumer that our company wasn't necessarily talking to. So I'd say the big highlight there is just protecting the key DNA that exists and not mucking with it.
All right, well, thank you, Ben, so much. Let's give Ben another round of applause. Really appreciate you being here with us.